Good day, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hazmat Guys. I'm Michael Monaco, so let's get into this.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 41, and we are the premier podcast dealing with hazmat response for fire responders, where we give you the knowledge and the insight to do your job safely and effectively. I'm Bobby Salveson, and I'm here with Mike, I guess. Again.
Yeah, I'm here.
We're present.
We're in different counties. I don't know if you guys can tell that, but
yeah,
we do everything over the internet, so this is all kind of fun. So we're here, but not really here.
Not really.
Not really.
It's quasi. It's very meta.
If a computer turns on in the woods and somebody is talking, but there's nobody on the other side of the internet to hear it,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's true. So what's going on?
A whole lot, man. Things are just crazy. I got so much going on. It's just nuts. We'll talk really quick because it's something that's bothering me. We had a run the other day. And I tell you what, they took and they made a mountain out of a molehill.
Yes.
And, we sat back and we shook our heads. And here's what happened. We had maybe a few ounces of, base?
I think it was sodium hydroxide, actually. No, it was a basic solution, but it was not sodium. I'm mixing two runs up.
Right. So it was this, and a little bit, maybe a couple ounces had spilled, maybe 16 ounces spilled, pint's worth, had spilt out on the road. And, they, nothing against the guys. The guys on the ground that were working did everything they were told to do. It was more the management that, we ended up having a couple ounce base spill and ended up being like a 500-gallon acid spill.
Yeah.
Right? So
that whole titration thing is so tricky.
Yeah. So listen, when you've got something, sit back and say, how can I really clean this up? And what is the hazard that is presented? So we had this base in a street, and in my opinion, I think we could have sopped this up with acid pads and then overpacked the acid pads and had the residue. Because there really wasn't anything. There wasn't even a puddle. It was just kind of residue on the street.
Right.
Who's that gonna hurt? Instead of dumping acid on it and then having to wash away all this acid and then having a puddle of acid running down the street. But I had to get that off my chest because there's
That's all right.
nobody.
Let it out, baby.
Nobody to talk to.
Cry it out.
So just think about what you're doing and honestly, play it out. What are the hazards? Versus am I going to make the situation worse by doing something that I would do 99% of the time? Is this the one situation in which maybe that's not the right way to go? Maybe there's a better way to handle it.
Right.
Or maybe I'm just wrong. Could be. Happens all the time. Guys, if you would like to help support the show, we ask you to buy some of our swag. It's not that expensive, and it all goes to things like production, hosting the site, all the data and the bandwidth we use up. It ends up being a pretty decent amount of money. So by buying a mug, buying a T-shirt, it puts a few bucks towards the show, and it helps keeps us going. Nobody's driving around in a Maserati due to our merchandise sales.
No. I had to whittle my pencil so I can write the notes for this with a.
I used blood.
I would like to thank Mike Komora from Massachusetts. He made a very generous donation, and that's what he did. He just clicked on the donation link on the right side of the hazmatguys.com, and he says he's from the I guess the Pinnacle Hazmat team. I guess there's a few of them. He's from the best.
The best.
From what he says.
Right.
The best of the best. The best of what's left.
Right. Well, there was the Acme, and then there was Pinnacle.
Right.
So Pinnacle ended up winning.
They won.
Right.
It was tight, but,
Either way, thank you very much. It really does. It helps keep the show going. A lot of time and effort invested in doing this. So it's nice to know that there's people that see some value in it.
Yeah.
Very cool. We got some speaking arrangements coming up, do we not?
We do.
We do. We are going to be up in Massachusetts in September.
September at the Plymouth show. Very excited about that.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's right. We've talked about the Rock before.
Yeah, the Pebble.
And the Pebble. And we are also going to be in Nashville supporting our buddies over at the Nashville...
It's the Firehouse Expo, and they were gracious enough to give Phil Ambrose, one of the guys that we work with on the other show, the Roundtable, an entire house to do as we may, and that we are turning it into the Meth House of Horrors. So we're going to have the entire cast of characters up there, the whole gang, doing... I guess each of us is doing a room where we're going to be doing everything from methamphetamine production scenarios to chemical physical properties to honey oil and all types of stuff like that. So I'm kind of interested because there's some aspects I have never seen live.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff that we just don't we don't see because of the nature of the city. And I was really I'll be honest with you, I was disappointed because my first idea when they said, hey, we're getting a house, we could do what we want, is I thought brothel.
Right. And make some money, turn some profit on this thing.
We've got 3 days down here. We've got a lot of firefighters that are going to be there. I'm sure we could have a really good turnover. I mean, just not even long enough for the police to raid us and shut us down. We could turn some serious coin, but
listen, we're already halfway set up for the meth. I mean, you're halfway there.
I know. Like each room could lead you to another step down the rabbit hole.
Oh, and the only way you can get out is to go through each. Oh, this is brilliant. We should really.
All right.
We missed the train on this one.
We need to get another house.
What are we talking about today, Michael?
Oh, we are going to be talking about grounding and bonding. Not just the hows and the whys, but really the concept of electricity and how it works and why it works and what we do. Because a lot of times we do things, and as a technician or a specialist, we just kind of train, hey, this is what we do for this. But it really helps to know why we're doing what we're doing. So, again, we're going to try to break this down to a 5th grade level and talk a little bit about electricity. And I guess that all kind of starts with laying down some basic definition and ground rules for what we're dealing with. So let's start off with the very, very basic thing. Let's start off with an insulator. Bob, can you give us a little insight as to what an insulator is?
Yeah, so an insulator is something that's not going to transmit electricity, all right? With these, and you see these things on electrical poles that may be hanging up on top of, on the street, anything from ceramic. It could be anything. And they usually, think about a wire. On the outside of the wire, you have that PVC, that plastic sheathing on the outside, and that would be an insulator. That keeps the copper core from transmitting to your hands and blowing you up. So in this case, we're talking about electricity, and we're talking about the stopping of electricity. Insulators are very important for the concept. So another part of it, like I just alluded to, is the copper that's on the inside, which would be the what? The conductor, right?
Yeah, that would be the conductor. So the conductor is going to be the object or the thing that transmits the electricity. It literally allows, on a molecular level, you have an atom to an atom, and there's literally a transfer of electrons, like literally a flowing of loose electrons.
Right. And you don't have to think about this like a wire. This could be just like the outside of a tank.
Yeah, anything that
water
conducts electricity. I hate to use the word in the definition, but anything that allows that free flow of electricity is going to be a conductor. And conductors come in all different conductivity, if you would. So some things can be really, really good conductors, and some things can be really, really poor conductors, like distilled water. What would distilled water be?
Terrible.
Now that is very unintuitive to a lot of people. They would turn around and they say, what are you talking about? Water is an excellent source. I got rid of my wife by throwing a toaster in the tub.
William Shatner. Look at him. No, that wasn't that. Oh, okay. Forget
that. So what can you help bridge that gap between, water is a insulator, not really a conductor, Bob?
Yeah, sure. So what actually transmits the electricity is the impurities in that water. So when you have things like electrolytes, minerals, not vitamins, that doesn't do anything but for me. But if you have things in there like salt, all these things add to the conductivity of water. If you have something like distilled water, it is void of those things. And therefore, it is almost like the vacuum of space being a poor conductor of heat.
Right. So don't be confused later on. We're saying water, pure water itself is an insulator. We're going to talk a little about using water to help ground and bond. Don't get confused and start, sending us emails. Hey, you guys are contradicting yourselves. There's a very fine line here. Water is the insulator, but the things that are dissolved in water, they make it really flow. Right.
Yeah.
So we have our insulators, we have our conductors. Now let's start talking about the actual charges. And one of the first charges we have are static charges.
Right. And this is caused by energy trapped on the surface of a non-conductive molecule. Okay. If this was trapped on a conductive material, it would just basically go away. It would be absorbed, and that's the end of it. But because it's on a non-conductive molecule or surface, it is actually held, and it can be created by the movement of solids, liquids, or gases. Pretty much what we do in our jobs.
So would static charges be something similar to a capacitor, where the charges are being held?
Yeah, exactly, and that's where capacitor. I don't want to get into this too early, but a capacitor is something that's in electronics that will hold a charge for could be almost an indefinite amount of time if nothing's acting on it, and it will release it in a certain time frame. So like something that's very slow would be like a battery, where we can hold a charge for a long time and slowly dissipate it. Or we can, you can have that thought process where I touch the two things together and then I have a lightning bolt shoot out of it. That might be something like a real capacitor, something that would hold short-term stuff.
So then we're gonna, so we've got our static charges, which is kind of the static, which is on the outside. Then we start to develop what's called a static charge as things start to build. So the more and more electricity that builds on the surface of an object, the higher the static charge. This is because static electricity, it really is it's almost like an imbalance between electrical charges, either within the surface or inside the surface, however the charge can hold. And the charge is going to remain there on your insulated surface, your non-conductive surface, and it's going to be there until it's giving a pathway to flow.
Right.
And once it's given that pathway to flow, then you have an electrical discharge, and this is where we're so concerned with grounding and bonding, yes?
Yeah, exactly. So you're saying that the outside of, let's say, a poly drum, like a 55-gallon poly drum that's holding the corrosive, can hold a charge even though it's not conductive.
Like a battery.
Yeah. Actually, it's exactly like that. It's like a battery until it blasts off.
Right. And when we deal with these small things, right? So the battery, the drum, we're dealing with small things. You're talking about small discharges. This concept can get all the way up to the tens of thousands, if not millions of volts when we talk about thunderstorms. Mm-hmm. Because it is literally the same concept, the same physics, if you would, that produces the static discharge when you touch a doorknob as it is a lightning bolt coming from the cloud to the earth.
Just the biggest scale.
Yeah, it's the biggest one you got. And you're talking about a lightning bolt that produces millions of degrees and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of volts. So static charges can get very, very powerful, and they should be respected. There's a lot that goes into static and electricity, and if you don't play with it right, it can turn around and bite you in the ass.
Yes, indeed.
So let's dive a little bit more into the electricity itself. All right, we're not trying to make a course on electric. All right, there's a lot that goes behind electricity. Literally, we could probably do a 3-year show on the theory of electricity, and it's a theory because no one really has proven anything about it. But we're going to try to explain some basic stuff here.
Yeah, you have voltage, amperage, and resistance. Okay, these three things kind of lock together, and they're known as Ohm's law. And resistance is the electrical quantity that measures how a device or material reduces the electric current flowing through this. What? What did he just say? It's
what?
It's measured in ohms. So, Mike, how do they all fit together?
Okay, so in order to really grasp the concept here, we have voltage, we have amperage, and we have resistance.
Right.
So this is In this very specific scenario, it is really no different than a pumper, right? And bringing water to a fire. So your voltage you can consider to be like your pressure, your water pressure, and technically the voltage is your difference in electrical pressure. So the higher the pressure, the harder the water is going to come out. The amperage would be like your gallons per minute.
Right.
Okay? So if I have a higher amperage, I have a higher flow, more gallons per minute. If I have a higher amperage, I literally have more electrons flowing through the wire. Mm-hmm. And resistance is very similar to friction loss. So I have friction loss from the water going through a tube. The higher the resistance on a hose line, the less water can flow through. The exact same is true with a conductor. So when the resistance goes all the way down to zero, when we have zero resistance, we have incredibly quick transfers because there is nothing keeping the electrons from flowing.
Yeah.
If I have high resistance, then I have very little flow, all the way to the point that I get an insulator.
It's just like closing off the nozzle.
Exactly.
There you go. So what is grounding and bonding? And I hate, this is one of my little pet peeves. You guys always use those two words together like, it's peanut butter and jelly. You can have a peanut butter sandwich.
Time. Peanut butter jelly time.
And you can have a jelly sandwich. But we always kind of bring them together like there's something like that are together. And this is defined as providing an electrically conductive pathway between a dispensing container and the receiving container and an earthly ground, which means you can consider Earth being zero. The pathway helps eliminate the buildup of static electricity by allowing it to safely dissipate to zero. Does that make sense? Let's break that. You know what? Break it down a little more.
That makes sense to me, but yeah, let's look at specifically at what grounding is. This is the term that refers to the method by which the facility grounding system is connected and referenced to the earth. So if anyone's ever looked at their water pipes in the basement and they've seen a big fat green or bare wire going to it, this is your house being grounded. If you consider, we were talking before about lightning and electrical buildup and stuff. The earth itself is actually can be considered like a capacitor. And you have electrons that want to try to flow to the earth. Right. So by allowing a path to the earth, you allow the electrons to flow into the earth. What's good about this is if you get the electrons to flow to the earth, then there's no electrons in your system. There is nothing to short out. There's nothing to spark. There's no electrical gaps to there's no electricity to actually create a flashpoint.
Right. And that's the goal of grounding, is to actually bring the potential of whatever tank it is to zero. Right? It's to bring it to nil. So there is no possibility of a discharge because it's at the same as zero.
Like taking your fire engine and emptying the tank.
Right. Now, bonding, on the other hand, is the joining of two electrical conducting materials together. So I have tank A, tank B. Let's say one is, and I'm making up theoretical numbers, one's at 10. I don't know what 10 is, but let's say it's 10, and the other one's at 5. Actually, that's a pretty bad number. Let's do 2, right? So they would both kind of meet in the middle, plus 4, minus 4, so that it would add into the same thing. So they would meet at 6. That would be an equal potential. Now, note how that's different than being at Mike's example of grounding at 0. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's how we're going to do these things.
So the method that we actually use to do the grounding and the bonding is we're going to take a look at the entire scenario, and we're going to connect metal parts and pieces or plastic parts and pieces that would normally not be part of an electrical system or current, and we're going to attach them together so that they can share their electrons.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that another term that you're going to have to know is relaxation. Okay, relaxation is not what I do on a regular. No, I'm joking. I rarely relax, actually. Relaxation is the amount of time that's needed to dissipate the charge through a liquid from solid to solid. You can have basically just the relaxation of electrons to flow to ground or to a lower potential.
Right. And before we start really talking about that and the capacities and the relaxation, within relaxation, we need to explain this, okay? The capacity or
Capacitance.
I can never pronounce this word. It's the capacity. All right.
Okay.
The capacity of an object, Jesus Christ, is the amount of charge that it can hold. So the greater a capacity, the greater the charge. A battery can hold the charge for a really, really long time and give it out very, very slowly. But something like a poly drum or me just kind of running around the house in the wintertime with nothing but socks on, picture that.
All right.
I'm going to gather up charges. And as I gather up charges, these charges, they may or may not be dissipated immediately. If they're not dissipated immediately, the moment I touch something that is a conductor or has a different potential than myself, it's going to produce a static charge in the form of like a lightning bolt.
Right, and this discharge is called relaxation time. That's what they term it as. And just to give you this can be in the area of nanoseconds, aka that lightning bolt that shoots out of your finger into the doorknob, to hours before it will get down there. And you say to yourself, well, how the hell long does it take? It all depends. You know, there are mitigating and way too deep for this type of discussion of why things would take that long. But there are times where, like a train scenario, where it may take hours to dissipate.
Right. I mean, that's just a huge, huge volume of product to hold charge.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, now we are going to have a little segment that we're going to call the Hazmat Nugget. And the idea of this is to bring you a little nugget of information that you can turn around and bring back to the firehouse and actually drill and train on. So this Hazmat Nugget is brought to us by HazSim, and you can find them at hazsim.com. So, Bobby, what do we got today?
All right, in today's nugget, we're going to be doing a little bit of radio report practice. And what I mean by this is that we want to be as clear and concise as we can on the radio. And one of the things that we can do is just basically practice this. So here's one of the ideas that I have to do one of these things is to grab a whole bunch of Legos. Everybody's got Legos laying around, and try to get matching blocks. What I mean by that is, you know, the 4x4 ones, you want a pile on the left and a pile on the right, and you build up two matching sets of those Legos. Tell one team to go over and build a structure of some type, and then on the radio, tell the other team how to do this. You can even do this with drawing on a Post-it note, where you draw a circle and then a triangle that's attached to it, and then maybe a square that's off, and they have to describe this. And it's getting your communications as effective as possible, and then you can start constraining this by saying, I want you to give a report in 20 seconds. Or in 10 seconds. And this gets increasingly more hard to do. You can also add in whatever our terminology is, exposure 1, 2, 3, 4, instead of saying to the left, right, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. You can do that stuff. Second floor, first floor. And then you can start giving them pictures of fires or pictures of scenes and say, describe this on the radio and let me write down what you think. It gets increasingly more hard. You can constrain this a little bit better. So that is your training nugget for this week. Thanks a lot for listening.
That has been your Hazmat Guys training nugget. Thank you, Bob, for that. And thank you, HazSim, for your sponsorship on that.
All right. So in this whole kind of Megillah Gorilla, why do we end up doing it? All right. Usually we find a scene or we find on scene a leak or a leak that's already getting out, and our objective is to mitigate and keep it from gradually going into the fire phase. So if I have, say, a tanker car, and that tanker car is now leaking, somewhere in this leak, I have a flammable range. Right? Somewhere I have a flammable range. In the process of transferring it, what I want to do is make sure that flammable range doesn't ever hit a sparking object.
Right, and just the flow of it falling out of the container can build up a head of steam,
right.
Well, as a head of static, we'll say. And once it goes on fire, we have to stop the transfer and deal with the fire, which now delays everything. Or it makes everything totally different.
Yeah, because now Yeah, you could lose product. You can lose the whole scene if this fire happens. So
Right.
we have to remember that during transfers, all right, specifically during transfers, static electricity from a flowing operation increases in unequal amounts on both the damaged tank and the undamaged tank. This buildup generates into
A coronal point, I guess it would be.
Yeah, a
Like
point
an
at
ignition
which,
point?
if given the opportunity, the static discharge will jump from one place to another. And if there's any kind of gap in between this conductive material, you're going to create a little spark. I'm hoping that people are watching the video. If you're listening to this, watch the video because I'm doing a little gap with my hand here. And that gap is hot enough, really, to light vapors.
Right. And you can think of yourself in your mind's eye of a spark plug, that little curve of the wire with the little lightning bolt. That really is how it looks. And the goal was, because we're going to speak about this in a couple minutes, was to establish a grounding field with a resistance of less than 10 ohms. Now, I can't really put this into perspective, though, because in some training courses, it was like 25 ohms. But achieving that goal of 10 to 25 ohms is often required pounding in, and I'm talking like you're sitting there with a sledgehammer, pounding in multiple 3-foot rods, wetting the soil, adding the salt, just like we talked about before. We're looking to increase conductivity. So how do I do it? By adding, I increase my surface contact with the soil by putting water on it. How do I increase my conductivity of that distilled water? By adding impurities, aka salt. So once people said, well, you got to drive them vertically into, that's what everybody thinks. I got to drive a rod into the ground. Everybody thinks I got to drive it in like a tent stake. Well, somebody eventually said, well, what if I turn it sideways and put it down flat? Which is very handy if you're in like Santa Fe, where you basically have granite underneath you. I mean, it's like a terrazzo floor out there. You know, you're not dropping these things 3-4 feet into the ground. So how do you do it? You turn them sideways.
And this works really great for roadways too. At least where we are, and we'll kind of get into where we are and how that's different than the rest of the country. Doing it on a roadway, you could put the stick on a roadway, cover it in speedy dry, get it wet, and you've created the ohms that you need to go ahead and do this.
That wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys. Thanks for taking a little bit of your day to listen to us and hopefully make your job a little bit easier.
Find us on Twitter and Facebook at the Hazmat Guys, and take a moment to go to iTunes and put in a review of our podcast. Let somebody you know that you think may enjoy this. Spread the news, because the more the news gets spread, the happier we are at the end of the day. If you have any comments about the show, a run, anything that pops into your mind hazmat related, you can give us a ring, 843-628-1484. That's 8436-THE-MAT.
And we are now recording the show and also producing a live, unedited version of the show on YouTube every week. In fact, we're doing it live, and there's many people watching us right now. So find us on Google+, and if you haven't found us on Google+, go out and find us and just +1 us. And that way, when you follow us, when we start the show, you will get a little notification, and then you can watch.
Yes, if you want to hear me strangle my son in the background, feel free to come on and watch this.
I tune in for that.
We always look forward to your feedback and information or interesting incidents that you were part of. Send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com. Guys, this is something we've been doing this almost a year. We have laid a tremendous amount of groundwork for the foundation of this show. And now we want to start hearing back from you. We want to start having you guys on the show telling us what you've done, how you've done it, and things that you've learned, and actually start having guests on and talking about various types of hazmat instances across the country. So please get a hold of us. Either Bob at the Hazmat Guys, Mike at thehazmatguys.com. We'll set up an interview. We want to hear what you're doing. We want to hear what you've done. We want to hear what worked, what didn't work. This is the place to come on and get information as well as share information.
I love it. Remember, guys, don't just get on the job. Get into the job.